Hey everybody, it's Friday, the 23rd of October today, and like every Friday, here I am. I'm Kevin, CEO here at CoinMetro, another AMA. This week though, we actually have a subject. We actually are actually having an AMA about something very specific, something really cool that's coming up in the next days, and that's our crowdfunding campaign. That's the CoinMetro bond. As you can see, scrolling across the screen here at the bottom of the page. Hey Jeff, hey Brian, nice to see you guys. So yeah, obviously it's still an Ask Me Anything, so you are free to, ask me anything. However, at the same time, would love to field a bunch of questions about the CoinMetro bond, about how we came to kind of go down this road, what it means, how the process works, about the potential equity-like ownership that comes after the bond issuance, secondary trading, all those great things. Going live next week. Whitelist is actually currently available. You guys can head over to bond.coinmetro.com and get early access. Whitelisted clients will have access from the 30th of October. Normies won't get access until the 3rd of November. So there'll be a nice gap there to make sure that you actually reserve a spot in the bond offering. We do have a lot of interest that's coming in from different parties, from groups tied to some of our investors, as well as clients, as well as not yet clients. So we wanted to make sure that everybody was able to get in, especially those that have been supporting us since the beginning. That's why automatically whitelisted our ICO participants. On top of that, our current equity shareholders are also whitelisted, and anyone that gets their name on that list before the 30th will also get their place held in line. So, hi Bob, how are you? So yeah, as always though, like I said, it is Friday, so post a question and I'm gonna answer it. So don't keep me waiting too long because, under these hot lights, I don't know, I may just fade away. So please go ahead and send through your questions and I'll start answering them. While I'm waiting though, I'll give you a bit of background on the bond itself. So as I guess if you've been here before, if you've been with CoinMetro for more than, I guess, the past, I don't know, I guess we mention these things quite a lot, and I think they're talked about quite a lot in our community as well. But if you're new to CoinMetro, or you just happen to happen on this video, CoinMetro actually, sometime in summer of last year, started a journey to create a sandbox, a regulatory sandbox in Montenegro, where we helped the Montenegro regulator create a sandbox. Sandbox is basically a place people can test really new, cool ideas, especially in fintech, with the regulator. So we started that process back in the summer of last year. And on the back of that, CoinMetro, along with another company called Ignium, created this digital securities marketplace where you'll see, if you go to our Go platform, or go.coinmetro.com, you'll see that as invest in the upper menu bar. And there is where companies, just like CoinMetro, small, medium, large companies, can go and create issuances, securities issuances, bonds, equity issuances, etc. And they can do that in a compliant and regulated manner. So the first company to do so was a company called Tangible that launched this Basecamp bond, which is a Japanese real estate project. Really cool one. You should check that out as well. If you head over to go.coinmetro.com and check out that invest page, you can see the Tangible offering. Well, CoinMetro is going to do its own offerings with that platform. And we're going to start off with a bond offering. So it's debt. We're going to pay you a decent amount of interest on that debt over the course of 2 years, 8 to 12%, which is quite a good amount of interest, especially in the current climate. And there will be secondary market trading. You'll be able to trade out of those bonds should you not want to hold them anymore. You'll be able to buy more bonds. You'll be able to take your daily interest payments, yes, daily interest payments, and actually put them back into the market to buy more bonds should you wish to compound that interest rate. And at the end of 2 years, you'll be given two options. You can either convert or swap back into XCM at a fixed rate of 20 cents per XCM. We're actually going to lock 12.5 million XCM to cover the potential 2.5 million issuance, 2.5 million euro issuance at the end of 2 years. So those will be locked and out of circulating supply for 2 years, which is also good for our native utility token XCM. Or you'll have the option at the end of those 2 years to convert into an equity-like token, which we're going to call the growth token, which will give you equity-like, the fruits of equity, basically, which is profit distribution and dividend distribution. And you'll actually own the piece of CoinMetro by doing so. So you'll own equity rights to a piece of CoinMetro and actually make money when we make money and grow with us, which I think is quite cool. So I'm going to jump into the questions here. Let's see what we got going on. Jet fuel, is USD still on track for Monday? Not necessarily a bond question, but definitely ties into the bond because, well, USD is USD, and we have a lot of investors in the US that are looking to put money into the bond, and obviously it's probably going to come via USD. So latest update on US dollars. I told you that out of the blue, the service provider told us that we had a 10-day kind of soft launch period that had to last 10 days. Today is the 10th day. We also needed to onboard at least 10 clients within those 10 days. Last I checked, 7, I think it was 7 now, yeah, 7 total clients that we whitelisted for USD have actually made deposits and or withdrawals. So 3 more have to do so, though I do know that at least 3 are still stuck with compliance verification on the provider side. So we're pushing, trust me, I'm pushing on it every day. I hope that today we get that rectified. Thus, yes, we should see USD on Monday. Either way, though, before the bond launches, it looks like USD will go live. It all depends on when we move from this soft launch into our production launch, and that depends a lot, or entirely, to be honest, on the provider, on the USD provider. But it is top priority. So it's not that we're sitting here twiddling our thumbs, staring at the ceiling, and hoping that somehow the USD fairy comes and presses her USD activation button. That's not what we're doing. We're actively making sure that thing gets live. Hey, Lynx Lead, how do taxes work with bonds in Germany specifically? Woof! I'll have to start out with the age-old caveat that I am not a tax professional by trade, and any information I may share with you is for informational purposes only. Yada, 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 yada. In general, when you you're buying a fixed income instrument, so you're buying into debt. Normally, you're going to pay capital gains tax on the interest. Well, actually, no. Actually, let me rephrase that, because that's only really if the bond were to increase in value, which, to be fair, most bonds tend to stay pretty static in value. So you're paying money on the interest. That interest is probably going to be looked at as income. So you would pay, you would probably be obliged to pay standard income tax on that interest, that earned interest. Though there usually is a threshold in most countries. I don't know the threshold and if one exists in Germany, but usually there's a threshold on earned interest. For instance, in the US, if I'm not mistaken, it's something around $600 US. If you don't make if you make less than $600 in accrued interest over the year, you are not taxed on that interest, unless you have some type of tax withholding. And I'm not sure what it is in Germany, but look for if there's what you should do a Google search for is earned interest income, and see if there's any type of specific threshold where once you earn above that, you'll be taxed, and how you would be taxed on earned interest. What do you think about rumor that PayPal wants to buy BitGo? I did say, well, I don't actually, to be fair, I don't think the rumor was they're buying BitGo. The rumor was that they're looking to acquire additional crypto, or not additional, but they're looking to acquire crypto platforms, and BitGo was one that was rumored that they're in talks with. My question first would be, does BitGo want to sell? PayPal has, some deep pockets. But BitGo's been growing and expanding their product base. I used to hate PayPal, to be fair. I think it was a real shitty company for many, many, many years. When it my first experience with PayPal was way back when it came onto eBay as a solution for merchants. And every once in a while, I would sell things on eBay, just because it was easy, or it was easier than the alternative was back in the day, which was a classified ad in a newspaper. And PayPal was abhorrent. I mean, they would freeze accounts at a drop of a hat. You get money locked for 6 months for no apparent reason. It was a joke of a company on many levels. Over the years, though, especially after the separation from eBay, I would say they've cleaned up their act a bit, and they're starting to become, I think they're starting to see the writing on the wall that the original PayPal business model is not really going to lead them into the 21st century, and they need to expand. So having said that, I think that they're definitely doing things that are becoming more interesting. They have a lot of money, and they're a massive organization, which means that if they were to acquire BitGo would probably end up getting additional services and may even be put under the PayPal umbrella, which would probably mean massive amounts of money influx into BitGo, which potentially could give us even better service. So I wouldn't be against PayPal acquiring BitGo, but that would depend on what they do with it. If they maintain BitGo as a separate entity and BitGo maintains its current services and adds on additional services, great. If it was going to be umbrellaed and maintain its current services, also great. If it was going to be umbrellaed and some of the services given up to focus maybe on just retail custody or wallet services, then I wouldn't be so happy, and we'd probably be moving to another provider. Bob M asking, how much did Basecamp raise? Well, Basecamp's primary sale is still on about 50 days left, I think, or something around those lines in the sale from the 90 days originally. It's raised up to this point 30,000 euro, roughly, of 2.5 million that they're looking to raise. It hasn't done an extensive amount of advertising, though that is picking up over time. There's also other options in the Basecamp playbook for bank loans and other things. But considering that it is the first project to go live on this platform, when you're the first on any platform, there's no user base. The user base for CoinMetro's Invest platform, you could argue, is the CoinMetro user base, but not particularly, because many CoinMetro users aren't there necessarily to get into bond investments. They're there to trade cryptocurrency. So you're getting into a new platform with a new user base. And so, to be honest, I think so far, while obviously we would have loved to see Basecamp raise 2.5 million in 2 seconds and pop the champagne bottles, at the same time, they have raised some money. It's been money that's helped the project move forward with things that they need to do as they move forward with the project itself, getting to the construction, et cetera, clearing the land, et cetera. So I'd say up to this point, as far as CoinMetro is concerned, it's a success. Technically, it worked. Systems in place worked. Interest is being credited. Bonds are being delivered on the Ignium side. Everything worked, et cetera. So from that point, I would say it's been a success. But definitely, I do think they will end up raising more money. Generally, how fundraising goes, you raise a lot in the beginning and a lot at the end. That middle area is really just for you to get the message out. That's kind of what that's there for. So we'll have to see what happens in the next 50 days and update that number and see what it looks like. So give us the rundown on the bond. Are we on track? And can you give us some insights as to what the equity-like token gives the user after the 2 years? Sure, Daniel P. So I gave a rundown at the beginning, and maybe this was posted, at some point while I was still talking. Not sure. Don't have a timestamp on it, unfortunately, on my side. But I'll give you the rundown again. So the way the offer is structured is initially it is a bond. Why a bond? Well, obviously, right now in the next 2 years, we wouldn't expect to have probably any dividend payments, and if we did, it would be towards the end of those 2 years. And even if we did dividend payments prior to that, they wouldn't be of a significant value. So for smaller investors, especially those that may be investing 10 euros, 100 euros, 1,000 euros, they may want to see some income sooner. And because we're putting their money to work, we think it makes sense that they see something, especially when they're small investors. Small investors usually have a harder time waiting for profit than larger investors, because larger investors usually have more liquidity. So they have investments all over the place, perhaps, or multiple investments, and they can wait to see that cash flow. So the bond allows smaller investors, they're going to get an interest payment, meaning right away they're going to start to see some profit, which we think is great for those small investors. And then through that course of those 2 years, the secondary market will open. So you'll be able to, as a bondholder, sell in that secondary market to another prospective bondholder. But this gives you an exit strategy. You don't have to sit on that bond till maturity. You have a way out, which, to be honest, is quite unique, even in traditional markets, where traditional markets generally for bonds, especially private company bonds, there's no secondary market per se. There may be billboard markets. Essentially, you go on a web page and say, I want to sell this, and then someone comes and clicks on it and goes, I would like to buy this, and then you negotiate it. And there's not a lot of liquidity there. It can take months for a trade to even close, or even to get an offer, or maybe never. So already it's a unique offer. And if you make it to the end of the 2 years, you hold for the 2 years, you get your 8 to 12% annual interest, so 16 to 24% interest over those 2 year period, which is pretty good, especially in the current climate. And that gets paid daily, by the way, again. So also something quite unique, especially in the bond market, especially in the private bond market, to be fair, even more so. You have the option then to convert to XCM, to swap into XCM at that locked 20 euro cents per XCM price. So let's have if XCM was only €1 after 2 years, that's a 5x on your initial principal investment. If XCM was lower, 10 cents, then you'd have the option to either take that 50% of your principal back, which most people I don't think would take, but you'd have the other option to convert into the growth token, equity-like token. So what's the equity-like token? When you convert to that equity-like token, you basically become, you own a piece of the equity rights when it comes to profit and dividend distribution. So anytime after that point in 2 years, we decide to pay a dividend or distribute some profit back to investors, you would get your share. Not to mention, if the company was sold, you would get your share. So you basically own a piece of those equity rights. You don't get voting rights. You don't get other rights that may be applied to shareholders, but you get equity-like rights to the fruits of equity, the main fruits when it comes to financial fruits, which are any money we pay out to shareholders. You get your piece. Also, I believe as we build out our ecosystem, we will have different perks that are applied to different types of token holders, XCM token holders, and obviously bond token, growth token holders as well. And at some point, we will actually tokenize the underlying equity. When we do that, we'll have 3 token types. So I can't speak to exactly what additional benefits would be given to growth token holders right now, but we will look to provide additional benefits to those growth token holders aside from just owning a piece of this profit, these payouts from either revenue or profit share. As well, remember, there will be a secondary market for those growth tokens as well. And unlike the bond token, which I do expect to maintain a relatively stable price, though it might fluctuate, I think the mean price will maintain itself pretty much throughout the entirety of the offering. Maybe at the point of redemption, it might move around a bit, but it generally will stay about flat, I would imagine. But the growth token does have potential. The growth token is tied to equity. So it's very much like a stock, very similar to a stock in that way, as the valuation grows. And we do expect over the next 2 years that valuation to grow, which is another major point in that when you convert to that growth token, you convert at the current valuation. If the valuation does a 4x in the next 2 years, you still get the current valuation. So again, you could almost immediately at that point put your growth tokens on the market and potentially get a buyer that would pay you, somewhere up to 4x of what you paid for that initial bond token. So that's the walkthrough. Hi, Kevin. Bond and XCM as well as daily payouts. Bond is not an XCM. Bond is going to be priced in euro. We're not allowing XCM directly to be sent to purchase the bond. I think most people I think that if you're holding XCM and you expect it to go 20 cents and beyond, then there's not much reason for you to cash out now to get into the bond, because you might as well just hold your XCM if that's really your goal. If you believe that XCM may be higher, but you also want access to that to potential access to equity, you want the option, the bond token may make sense. But if you pay us an XCM, you're paying us for a debt instrument. We're going to spend that money. That means we'd have to liquidate the XCM, which obviously would affect XCM price. So we're not taking XCM directly for the purchase of the bond. And I don't really see a strong enough correlation for most investors. If you're an XCM holder, then you'll probably maintain yourself as an XCM holder. It would make sense because if XCM goes from its current, as XCM goes higher, and if in 2 years it's above that 20 cent price anyway, you would have made a higher return by holding on to your XCM you bought at a lower price rather than locking in at 20 cents. The idea is that if you get into the bond and you get to the end, and maybe at some point throughout those 2 years, you decide that, well, look, XCM's at like €4 now. That is a 20x on my money. Do I want the 20x or do I want the equity, which eventually may pay me much more than 20x, but it's not going to do it today? And that's why we have the XCM option, because it's like going back to cash. It's CoinMetro cash. It's just not Euro cash, but can easily be converted. I'm a non-credited U.S. resident, but receiving the whitelisting email for the bond. Did something change with U.S. resident eligibility? No, nothing has changed. But you're probably an ICO contributor, or you put your email into that form, and that's why you received. So nothing's changed up to this point. What I would say is, what I can say is that if you're not a CoinMetro client, that accredited investor, the need to be an accredited investor is unwaverable. Hopefully you read between the lines. Bryan Ortega, do you think we will see a major up XCM move in Q4? Specifically in Q4, look, The crypto markets, for as much as you want to listen to analysts and as much as you see on TV and on Twitter and crypto Twitter and Reddit, is a hype and FOMO driven market. Almost 100%. That hasn't changed in the last few years. The only thing that has changed is now that the initial retail traders that came in, or the initial non-traders that came into crypto, are now starting to study about trading, and they've become more astute retail traders. But that's still the vast majority of traders that run this market. And new money that flows in, for the vast amount of new money that flows in, is FOMO'd into the market. It's hype driven. So up to this point, we've had ebbs and flows in CoinMetro of doing kind of focusing on hype. And our community has gotten very hyped at some point in time, and you've seen how that affects XCM price. But as a company, we haven't really been the source directly of that hype and FOMO driven marketing. That's going to change as we start to divide marketing between kind of hype FOMO community and client acquisition and growth. Those may seem like they're the same thing, but in reality, they're not. Because normal people don't FOMO into something with no knowledge of what it is. That doesn't mean that somebody that hears Bitcoin for the first time might think, oh, Bitcoin, and then do a little research. Sure. But on average, people tend to know something because that makes them even more, or makes them more even susceptible to the FOMO, to the hype. So growth and acquisition might be boring to the things you do to get growth and acquisition of clients may be boring to your hype and FOMO community. And the hype and FOMO marketing may be overzealous or may seem scammy to your normal client acquisition channels. So it's two different things. And we're now starting to focus on those two. So in Q4, I would say that we have a lot of things happening in Q4. And if really XCM is correlated to the underlying value of our product and the company, it should already be worth 10 times what it is now at a very minimum. Unfortunately, that correlation takes time to create. But the more clients we bring in, the more standard marketing we do, and then the more FOMO and hype-driven marketing we do through social media and our community channels, the more that's going to change. So Q4, we're focused a lot still on pushing out product and bettering the current product. And while we are also focused now on kind of creating those two marketing channels, we're going to be more and more focused on pushing those marketing channels as we get out of this build phase. And Q4, we're still partially in that build phase. So I do think we will see some upward mobility as people start to come into the bond. That I do think, because it's more exposure for us. There will be, I have a few interviews lined up. I'm also doing interviews myself, and I have a nice webinar series. It's going to be quite cool. I think we're going to do a live stream. We may even do a 24/7 live stream on the day of the launch. I'm not sure yet. We're contemplating, but it'll be quite cool. Doesn't mean there'll be somebody here 24/7. You might see me, I don't know, sleepwalking here in my pajamas through my secret hatchway. But anyway, lots of things planned and lots of outward media as well. So I do think we're going to see some more exposure. But yeah, I guess that's how I'll answer the question. I think that's the safest way for me to answer that question. Thoughts on PayPal now offering Bitcoin synthetic to normies? Like I said, look, I look at this two ways. First, everybody that says this, well, that's not really Bitcoin. And please take this in the nicest possible manner, please. If you're one of those persons that said that, please don't take offense to this, but you're fucking retarded. Because if you really think about what Bitcoin is to most people, Bitcoin is, I saw it on CNN, it was worth 4K. Now it's worth 14 or 13 or whatever. What that means to most people is, I want to make money. They're not sitting there thinking, blockchain is an amazing technology that's going to take over the world and solve world hunger. And they're definitely not thinking, blockchain is about getting people access to the financial economy that never had access to it before. Nope, they're thinking, I would like some of that money. So whether they're buying into synthetics, whether they're buying into fake PayPal, Bitcoin, whatever you want to call it, that's probably they don't really care what happens on the backside. They absolutely do not care. There is such a small population of the world that cares about how that's structured. And those people, the amount of people that don't care is massively larger. So at the end of the day, this is good for the mass populace. One, they can get into some action and lose their money like everybody else. And potentially make some money. And two, it's bringing awareness of what Bitcoin is and the possibilities of Bitcoin, at least from a financial perspective, to a large part of the world. They can now spend it. They can get it from their sales. They can sit on it. You know, if you get paid in USD from one week to the next, your USD is probably going to be worth maybe slightly more compared to maybe the euro or the pound, but not that much at all. And potentially over time is worth less, right? But your Bitcoin could be worth substantially more or substantially less, to be fair. But they haven't really had this opportunity on PayPal. So I think overall it's a good thing. I think at the end of the day, though, people who will suspect that this news is somehow going to put Bitcoin at 50K also don't really know what they're talking about. Because yes, it is synthetic. In fact, they may have it hooked up to backed or CN. They may be using futures. They may not be using futures at all. They may be hedging. They may be hedging with futures. It might not even be directly connected. They could be hedging in batches. They may not actually. They may be hedging based on leverage. So they may not even be buying. You know, they might even be buying underlying synthetic contracts for the same amount that are actually held on deposit. No one really knows exactly how they're running the back office. The point is that it's not, the only effect it has is FOMO and hype. So PayPal news came out. It may have been one of the catalysts for Bitcoin to rise recently. May have not been, but it probably was, at least a little bit. Especially because people don't even read the news. They just see PayPal Bitcoin and go, oh my God, there's like 300 million clients. And they get all, you know, butterfly and unicorny and, you know, stuff starts to happen. But at the end of the day, in reality, it doesn't really have an effect on price. It won't for quite some time. But the initial FOMO and push, well, that's what you're seeing. That's kind of, though, how Bitcoin prices itself. It's FOMO and hype. So just like the rest of the market. Hey, Elsie, happy weekend to you as well. Nice to see you here. Hi, Kevin. Please clarify the exit point CM valuation in 2 years when the bonds are to be converted in equity. What valuation model mechanism will be used? Well, it's already been used, actually. So we, last year when we were going through, I'm going to take this one off if you don't mind. I'm going to read the question one more time, just so people are clear. Asking about the valuation, how the valuation came to be, what mechanism was used. I'm going to take it off because it's cutting off half my face and I feel like I have to sit here like this. So the valuation was created before our last funding round. And if you know or you don't know, there's about 7 different standardized valuations for how you come up with a valuation of a company. As I'm usually more transparent than I should be, I'm going to tell you that all these what happens when a company does a valuation is they get outside support, they provide numbers, they provide details, and they get 6 or 7 or 8 or 9 or sometimes 12 different possible valuations. And they get conservative-based valuations based on each metric, and they also get aggressive valuations on each metric, and they choose the one they think is the one that's most accurate, or i.e. the one they like the best, the one they can sell. That's how valuations work. There isn't some super secret formula that automatically values a company. There's usually, in more standardized companies, there's a valuation metric, 5x, basically your net. I can't remember the actual acronym. Somebody out there knows. Somebody probably works in accounting and knows the acronym. ERC, earnings before. Anyway, whatever. Let's just call it your kind of net earnings, essentially, before tax, basically. And you take a multiplier of that. Restaurants can be up to a 10x because restaurants, if they're making money, usually can make money for quite many years. It's not that risky of a business if you're making money. Unless COVID comes around and then whatever, all bets are off the table. But for tech and fintech businesses, there really is no standard multiplier. Well, 3x is probably one that's used the most, 3.5, maybe 4x, because you don't know what's going to happen in 4 years in tech. Some tech could just go away. So here we didn't use that type of valuation. We use valuation simply based on financial projections plus what our property is worth, our intellectual property, our IP. And that valuation was set in concrete when we raised the last funding round. 1.4 million valuation was set at 50 million based on the amount of equity they acquired. So one thing is creating a valuation. And like many ICO tokens, sometimes those are created out of thin air. But once you find a party, whether that be an angel investor, a VC, whoever it is, to invest at that valuation becomes realistic. It becomes your valuation. It is now set in stone. Someone bought in at that valuation, that's the valuation. I just want to let you know that saying Australian super funds have SNXM is a little misleading when it's only self-managed funds. Not sure that that's misleading because they are self-managed. That's true, but they are called super funds. Correct? Correct me if I'm wrong, but we used to deal with these at FXPig as well. We actually had clients that had their own super funds. So yes, I guess to clarify that would be self-directed super funds. But they both are super funds because I guess it's different than other parts of the world. For instance, I wouldn't say if someone invested their part of their 401k, for example, in CoinMetro, I wouldn't call that a mutual fund. I would call that a 401k. Whereas, because they have two different names. Whereas in Australia, I guess you can have publicly managed super funds, which are like mutual funds, versus self-guided mutual funds, which are not. So there you go. I read about a debit card in the past. Is that still something you guys will be offering in the future? Yeah, it is. We've been dealing back and forth with, our banking as a service provider, who will be kind of basically issuing the card, obviously branded by CoinMetro, but issued by our banking as a service provider. Visa made some changes in accordance to what they accept for how they accept crypto merchants, third-party merchants being us, clients of our banking service provider. And they asked for additional documentation from us, which we provided within, I think, 2 weeks, maybe 3 weeks of being requested. But our banking as a service provider has yet to update their own policies that need to be updated as per Visa to be able to offer services of card issuance to us as their client. Every time I talk to the banking service provider, last call was with their one of their compliant, somebody from compliance, as well as our own representative. It's on Friday of last week, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. No, actually, it was this week. Might have been Tuesday or Wednesday. I don't know. These weeks are starting to really jumble up together, guys. I feel like I'm in one long week that hasn't ended for several weeks. But yeah, so when I was on a call with them, whenever it was some days ago, is that they are close. They don't use the word soon. So if we can trademark the word soon, these guys can trademark close. I mean, trademark it. Like literally it's theirs and it's been theirs and no one can take it away. But they've been close now for the past 3 or 4 phone calls. Almost over the line as well. That's something they can also trademark. So yes, we will offer debit cards. I've been lambasted a bit on Telegram about like saying, because I could tell you exactly what they told me in that phone call as far as time span. I'm not going to do that though. I will just say that it's going to happen, but it really depends on when they get their documentation package together and shoot it off to Visa. Can you talk more about the equity token at the end of the bond? Will we be able to sell this? Okay, so I think I did talk about that, Jeff Fuel. If I missed a question, go ahead and post it again. Unfortunately, I don't have time stamps on these questions when I see them. So I don't know if I've already talked about it or I missed a question or it was posted while I was talking. So apologize for that. I don't know if they bettered. If not, they are going to be blockbustered at some point. That was probably a comment about something I was saying. Totally out of context now. Sorry about that. What CoinMetro product excites you the most for the future? Hey, Dredd. That's a good question, actually. I think, when you really talk about our product base, it really revolves around, I would say, almost one product, though in reality, it's kind of turning into 2 products. And that product is a matching engine, because the matching engine essentially is kind of the heart of the entirety of the business. What we do is we build front-end products on the back of the matching engine, right? That's kind of what we do. In terms of front-end products, I honestly think that the combination of kind of staking and collateral. So I'll go from 2 ends. For a trader's perspective, I think staking and collateral is amazing because it allows me to get some passive income, but it also allows me to be able to utilize those locked funds to actually continue to trade with, which I think is ultra cool. And if I'm not a trader, I can actually potentially throw them into a tram as well, which is also cool. So I can go into the copy trading module. I think that's quite unique. In total, though, when I read the Bitcoin white paper, so long ago, when I had 3 more pieces of hair and 2 less wrinkles, maybe 3 less wrinkles, I don't know. When I read that thing 11 years ago now, the immediate thing that I thought about was capital markets and settlement, to be fair, and FX all at the same time. I didn't think about Bitcoin, didn't really care to be honest about the kind of product that was built on top of the network. I could care less at that point. I could care less. I didn't really care at all. What I saw is the ability to have a better functioning capital market system. And I still think that's really where the underlying core benefit is when it comes in finance, when it comes to this technology. And that's why the Invest platform for me is probably my favorite. And probably the one that kind of, excites me the most, I guess, in terms of just personal excitement. But there's a difference between personal excitement and what I think will actually benefit CoinMetro the most in the short, medium, and long term. And I do think the Invest platform will benefit CoinMetro quite a lot. But I tend to think that because we're retail focused, that even though I do think it's going to benefit us and our clients a lot, and as we build it out, it's going to become more and more, I guess, natural for retail clients to play around with that platform and every other platform we have. I think the passive income generators are going to be our core exciting product. And the first one, let's say staking and collateral. But moving forward, more and more ways to generate passive income. This UBI that's been talked about, universal basic income, which at first was laughed at. 10 years ago, if you try to talk about universal basic income, you were laughed off the stage. 5 years ago, you were laughed off the stage. 3 years ago, a couple people raised their eyebrows and thought that might be a decent idea. There's a few countries around the world that have tested it out. In fact, some have been doing it for decades. I think we're getting closer and closer to that moment. And the more you can provide some type of stable income to the vast majority of the public, I think that becomes quite sexy and exciting for sure. So I would say that's probably it from a business perspective. Hey, Kevin, I asked some time ago on the influx of USD, once USD is live, where you mentioned that there were no specifically large ones you were waiting for. On the other hand, you are mentioning that there are some large players ready for the CM bond waiting for USD to be live, even that there is a need for a whitelist. So could you clarify what I understood wrong? Sure, easy clarification, actually. So for the system that we use for USD, the provider we use, there's two methods, right? There's ACH, and we do it instantly. So we actually credit you instantaneously that ACH deposit, that local automated clearinghouse deposit. We may not receive that money for up to 10 days, but we credit you instantly, kind of like what we would do on a credit card. And that, I wouldn't necessarily, because we do have to limit it in some fashion, and even some banks limit it, and we're not expecting, massive influx. And for domestic wires, I shouldn't say massive, we're expecting influx. We're expecting a controlled influx. Let's put it that way. In terms of domestic wire, I don't see many clients initially going for domestic wire unless they have to. One, it's not instant. Two, it's more expensive. So until we start building more and more out the client base in the US, specifically for USD trading pairs, I wouldn't see a massive influx via wire either. However, for the bond, we have more than one we've had USD accounts for quite some time, though they have to we have some accounts at certain banks that we can only receive a minimum of, say, $50,000 per wire transfer per individual client. For the bond, for larger amounts invested in the bond, we would probably go that route for those investors, simply because those accounts are more cost effective for us, and they're going to be easier for clients to wire funds to because they're a direct to CoinMetro account rather than through a service provider. So two similar things, but definitely not the same. Mark from PRQ said that in order to stake PRQ, you will have to transfer PRQ from exchange to other place. But since CoinMetro is their partner, they will try to do something just for CM. Can you say something about that? Yeah. So I haven't had direct. I've talked about this topically a couple weeks ago with them, but we haven't brought the topic up again. I'm actually supposed to see perhaps the CEO tonight, may see him tonight or perhaps over the weekend. So this will probably be brought up in conversation. Because they're adding staking into their contract, potentially you would have to hold it on your own external wallet for that to actually execute. But at the same time, CoinMetro has an external wallet, which means anything they do on chain would affect the cold and warm and hot and warm wallets that CoinMetro holds with PRQ sitting in them. We would just need to have a distribution method so we could make sure that everybody gets distributed what they are due through the CoinMetro system. And that's absolutely something we can do. So it really just matters how exactly they're going to execute those staking rewards. But it should be possible, just as they said. But specifics I don't have yet because I haven't shared them with us. Hi, Kev. You mentioned in Telegram about XCM token swap will happen at some point in the near future. I'm assuming trading will be subsequently locked. How long would it take for this process to occur? Trading wouldn't be locked on CoinMetro. There's no reason to lock trade. I know everybody on the PRQ side and Parsec side fell into this Poloniex nonsense. We hold, let's say, for example's sake, 10 million PRQ in our wallets on behalf of our clients. Whether that we can swap that in and out on 50 different contracts, it makes no difference. We still will hold 10 million PRQ on behalf of our clients. Thus, if you have a deposit already on CoinMetro at the time that the swap is going to take place, and during the swap and until the swap is officially done, you can continue to trade back and forth, and your wallet will appear as PRQ. You'll see it in CoinMetro, and it will be unlocked. The only thing you won't be able to do is withdraw it or deposit more during that token swap period. That would affect the ledgers. Imagine if we take a snapshot at 10 million and someone deposits 1 million. Then they start trading that 1 million. Now, when we come back from the token swap, we still take the old 10 million out, put the new 10 million in, but now there's 11 million. What happened to another million? Oops. That's what happened at Poloniex. That would not happen at CoinMetro. The process itself shouldn't take all that long. It's basically locking deposits and withdrawals, taking the snapshot, pushing through the new contract, and bringing over the newly created funds into a wallet for CoinMetro to cover all the XCM that currently exists on the platform. And any XCM that was in an external wallet would basically be automatically sent out to those external wallets based on the snapshot. That's it. So in reality, it should happen the same day, I think, to be fair. Probably the same day. If there's any issues that were to come up, maybe with external wallets or some wallets not getting credited, there may be certain individuals, and maybe it takes a few days to clarify something that may pop up while that process is happening. But in reality, I think 1 day is enough. Thank you, Brian. Appreciate that. Guys, as much as you can, give us a thumbs up. Click on that little heart wherever you happen to be watching. It helps, trust me, especially as we build up towards this crowdfunding event that's happening next week. As we go through this webinar series, the more eyes that we get, the more people that like what we're doing, the more eyes we get, the more eyes we get, the more people come in, you get the idea. What are the future plans for CoinMetro? Hey, Grumbling Unicorn, you must have been trading on Uniswap and got screwed by some slippage. Yeah, so lots of plans. I mean, to be honest, I could probably talk for 2 hours just about plans. But in reality, I guess from a high level, going through this CoinMetro bond, expanding our invest platform, expanding our marketing efforts, starting to do what I talked about in the beginning of the show, which is kind of the FOMO hype community-centric marketing as one side of the business, and growth and client acquisition on the other side of the business. Pushing forward with new licenses, pushing forward into new countries, pushing forward new assets, expanding the current systems that we have, continuing with our beautification effort of getting everything into the new design. On the front end, pushing out additional pages, starting to focus much more on different types of marketing, whether that be SEO and content, which we've already started to do, but refining content strategies, starting to build products that start to underpin crypto and blockchain technology with traditional services that we've already started to do, but we'll do more of, coming up with more new and innovative products, trying to become kind of the mature retail shop, the place that you go because it's trustworthy, it's regulated, we're transparent, we tell the truth. You could talk right to the CEO, the guy does AMAs every Friday, et cetera. And really just be a place that people understand that, I'm not going to be Brian Armstrong. You won't see me falling into those traps. I'm going to remain transparent. You're going to keep seeing me. Our team is going to continue to try to push the best things they possibly can. We're not going to try and hide. We're not going to try to evade regulations so that if something happens, you guys lose access to your money because a key is gone for whatever amount of time. I'm just really trying to do things the right way, being honest when bad things happen, being honest when good things happen. And I think that it's sorely needed, not just in crypto, but that type of business, to be fair. That's why FXBig had the success it had. Yep, it was a small business in comparison to the big boys, but it was always meant to be. It was a niche business. We never advertised. It was a different business from CoinMetro in that sense. But at the same time, that business, we had business and we maintained our clients because we were honest and truthful, and we actually tried to help clients make money, which you usually can't say. Look, did BitMEX try to make? Does they really want you to make money at Binance? Do you think so? Do they really want you to make, did BitMEX really want their clients to make money? That's a question you have to ask yourself, because if you're a losing trader, well, I guess it doesn't matter. But when you start to make money and you start to realize and you start to look at market practices and things like stop hunting and market manipulation and liquidations, and when you look at different price movements between different pricing feeds, you start to realize that honesty, transparency, and just being a good human being tends to fly out the door in most broker dealers exchanges. That's a fact of life, and that's something that we are kind of fighting against. And I think in the long run, that makes us a winner and puts us above pretty much any competition that comes our way. Why is this better than Coinbase? Well, I just gave a brief explanation of that. I think, look, we are still going through and making our products better, and we honestly are never going to stop doing that. But even the products we have now are solid products. If you compare our exchange, not our Pro or anything else, compare it to Coinbase Pro, compare our exchange, compare the functionality that our exchange platform has versus Coinbase Pro. Compare, the ability, the fees, for Christ's sake, on Coinbase are absolutely outrageous. Compare the fees, compare the transparency of those fees to the transparency of the fees at CoinMetro. We're up front, and it's pretty simple fee pricing. We don't charge you a platform fee and then a commission fee and then you decided to use our service, what a moron fee. We don't add all those ridiculous things into our fee structure. We're pretty straightforward with what we do. Compare our support. Compare the fact that it could be 3 a.m. where you are, 2 a.m. or 6 in the afternoon. You can jump on a live chat and get somebody that can actually help. I think even those two things alone make us substantially better than Coinbase. You can argue about maybe volumes, but I'll tell you that volumes and liquidity are two different things. Dynamic liquidity scales with volume. So while there may be less volume, that doesn't mean there's less liquidity. And the fact, again, transparency, I think. You're not going to catch me, I don't know, saying some nonsense on Twitter, or I might say some nonsense on Twitter. I shouldn't go that far. But I'm not going to post a dissertation on Twitter. I'm not going to stop my staff from talking about, politics in the office. In fact, I think I'm probably the one that talks about politics more than anybody else here in the office. I think we're real people, and I don't think we're not going to become a corporate kind of brand where we toe the line. We definitely will be compliant and strict when it comes to regulatory measures. We always have, and we always will be. That's for sure, but that's to protect you. But on other measures, look, we're all humans. I think we're all human beings. We're all just normal people. We're all doing our job. And at the end of the day, I think if you really make a comparison. So, it's hard to make comparisons when maybe you really like maybe you really like Coinbase. So it's going to be hard for you to make an objective comparison. It's like politics, man. If the word Trump comes up in a conversation between my father and me, he goes ballistic. I'm not saying I'm a Trump voter, but I'm objective. I can look at both sides and say what is good and what is bad, because I'm not so much into the politics that I end up hating one side and loving the other, even though they're both relatively ridiculous. And I think so it can be hard to be objective about brands, especially if you like one or another. But I think, when you dig in, I don't think there's much competition, to be fair, on most things that should matter to traders. Support, usability, functionality. But support is a big one. It's a big one. Kevin, what was the stupidest thing you heard recently regarding crypto? Wow. Jesus. I don't know. To be honest, I've heard some stupid things recently, but I don't know if they generally were revolving around crypto. But I've heard a lot of stupid things in the past about crypto, for sure, from people misunderstanding what crypto is to, the age-old question of, Bitcoin's used for money laundering, which was always a great one, especially when asked by a bank. Especially when asked by a bank that's been accused of money laundering. Obviously, lots of money is laundered. Most of it's not in Bitcoin. That's clear. In fact, the market cap of Bitcoin couldn't support probably a fifth of worldwide money, not even a 50th of worldwide money laundering. So that's asinine. And you still hear that one, to be fair. To be honest, I've had my nose so much in CoinMetro stuff over the past few weeks that most of the nonsense I've heard has been on a traditional side, to be fair, not necessarily about crypto. I'll give you one. Okay, so insurance. Yeah. So we have to get insurance for one of our entities, right? Not to go into full details, but insurance for one of our entities, basically indemnity insurance. If those who don't know what that means if the boss runs away with the money, there's some coverage. That's pretty much what indemnity insurance means. So one of our companies we need to get indemnity insurance for, and we were told by the underwriters that, well, you know what, you're crypto, so, and the insurance has nothing to do with crypto, by the way, but because we have crypto in our business model, that's a problem. So you can open another business that has no financials, no reporting, no nothing, and we'll insure that one, even though it's going to do pretty much the same business that you're currently doing. But this way, at least it's segregated. So that was pretty stupid. Stupid in a way that, well, what difference does that make? It's like you find yourself in the business world where like busy work is created just to make something, just to make people feel at ease, even though they know that nothing really changes. It's like, yeah, go open this company, put this company over here. It's the same same owner and everything. Okay, but fine. But at least we can look at this one and it's not doesn't talk about crypto, you know? So it's okay now. It's okay now. Yeah, that was pretty ridiculous, I guess. That might be one of the most recent ones. I don't know. I'm a proud ICO contributor. Thank you, Jason. Appreciate that. Can you help me convince my partner to buy into CoinMetro bond and the risks involved? My partner's name is Nick. Help me out, buddy. All right, Nick. I've done a lot of talking about the bond already today. I don't know if you caught some of that. But I guess, look, if you look back, what we were talking about Coinbase, let's talk a little bit about Coinbase, okay? And the numbers I'm going to give you here are not going to be 100% accurate, but you can look this up and get the accurate ones, yeah? So let's imagine that Coinbase ran a similar funding round when Coinbase was an unknown small crypto company in the US. Let's say at that time they raised 2.5 million and they were willing to give up 5% of their company on the back of that 2.5 million, 50 million valuation, yeah? Let's assume you got into that. Let's assume that was probably, for Coinbase at least, probably, it might be 5, 6 years ago, something like that, 7 maybe even. But let's say you got into that. Let's say you got into that round. What would that be worth today in terms of that equity share? How much money would you be profiting? What is CoinMetro, how has their valuation moved? Well, I think Coinbase's last valuation was 8 billion. Yeah. So there was a time when they were worth less than 50 million. In fact, I think their initial seed round, they were valued at less than 50 million. So imagine you got into that, now it's worth 8 billion. You do the math and you can understand the power of getting into something before it really starts to go global. Remember that, you know, Coinbase and these companies had even take out of context from the crypto world, you know, the Tesla example, for example, or the Uber example, $5,000 investment into a seed round for Uber was recently worth 25 million. So you get the context. Obviously, picking the Ubers and the Coinbases of the world, not the easiest thing to do. But I think when you look at what CoinMetro has built, what we have done, and you compare it to what they have done, meaning Coinbase, or what anybody really else in the market has done, what's missing in that equation is awareness. It's not, we're not missing, awareness then comes into credibility. More credibility, more awareness. All those things get built together. We're not missing the regulatory side. We're not missing out on, we don't have bad support. We don't have a skeleton staff that can't support the current client, the structure we have. We're not, sitting on one platform that doesn't necessarily work or doesn't have any feature sets. We're sitting on some intellectual property that has substantial value. We just don't have the awareness. Awareness comes from marketing. Marketing happens with money. So the money that comes in from the CoinMetro bond, a good percentage of that is going to be over time funneled into marketing. And we already know that the marketing that we've already started to do in small batches has done a 5x, 7x, et cetera, on, 5x on our revenue in just between 1 month to the next. 7x on I think of the amount of clients we have. We've been able to do multipliers that other companies can no longer do because of their growth. That means we're just at that kind of beginning of that growth cycle. So you're getting in at a valuation equivalent to the beginning of a growth cycle. Not only that, but you have 2 years to decide and see what happens to CoinMetro before you convert potentially into that equity-like option. So you're going to get 8 to 12%. And if you're not an ICO contributor, well, since obviously, Jason, you are. If Nick, you're not an ICO contributor, you can still get up to 11%. Pretty easy. You just buy 50,000 XCM and stake them. Or not stake them, just basically put them into our tier system, which, by the way, you get back. So you're not actually spending them. And now you're getting 11% interest. over every year for 2 years, paid daily. So essentially, you get into the bond, you immediately start making interest. After a 14-day waiting period on your initial investment, you start getting daily interest every day to your CoinMetro account that you can withdraw, do whatever you want with, buy more bonds, buy some Bitcoin, buy some XCM if you want, do whatever you want with it, or you can withdraw it. And at the end, not only that, but you have a secondary market. So if at some point you want to sell out of the bond, you see that growth over the year, maybe you were expecting 10x growth year one and there was only 8x growth. And you say, well, I was expecting 10, I want out. You have the ability to get out. You're not locked in. Get out whenever you want. There's a secondary market. I think from all angles, this is kind of a pretty no-brainer. You're not locked in. You're getting a good interest. You can cash out through a secondary market should you choose to. And at the end, you can watch the company grow for 2 years and make your decision whether you want to be part of that or whether you just want to cash out maybe an XCM or sell into the secondary market before the bell tolls after 2 years. Do you think XCM is better than BTC? It depends what you're using it for. If you ask me what has more growth potential, percentage-wise, right now, in the current market and in the next 5 years, I would say XCM. And the reason I would say that's pretty simple, and that XCM is super undervalued. I can't say the same thing about Bitcoin. And no Bitcoin maximalist with a straight face could tell you it's undervalued right now. What they can say is that as more money flows into Bitcoin, it becomes scarcer and thus the price should go up. And that's a valid point. But for Bitcoin's price to go up, they have to actually sell substantially more. The volume of Bitcoin sales has to be substantially larger. For XCM to rise in that same time period, the amount of XCM that needs to be purchased is significantly less to a proportion of its possible increase in value. So in the next 5 years, I would say XCM has a pretty good chance of having a better value, speculative value, than Bitcoin does. XCM can definitely do a 2 to 5 to 20x much faster, much quicker, and with much less influx of capital than Bitcoin can. Not to mention that as our company grows, because it's a utility token, there will be an ongoing more and more of a correlation back to the value of the underlying company. Bitcoin doesn't have an underlying company. Bitcoin has an underlying technology that really cannot scale. So if you're equating Bitcoin to the technology, it's already overvalued. If you're comparing Bitcoin to as money flows in, that's how Bitcoin will rise in value. You have to assume that the market value for Bitcoin is going to 10, 20x in the next year, 2 years, 3 years. Will it? Is it possible? At some point when it's rising so quickly, would anybody want to sell it? If no one sells it, how does somebody buy it? Does that really mean the price goes up? Just because if it was art, if you have a piece of art and everybody wants to buy it, but nobody's selling it, the value on paper goes up because there is no market order book for art. If there was, that wouldn't happen. Why doesn't it happen? Well, it's an order book. For the price to go up, people need to sell it and people need to buy it. If no one's selling it because the price is moving so fast that no one wants to sell, then the price cannot go higher. So think about that one. I don't care about bonds, do something for XCM. Thank you, Grasshopper. The bond is doing something for XCM. It's awareness. More awareness, more money we have for marketing, more awareness. There is a direct correlation, 100%. So you should care. Doesn't mean you have to invest in the bond, but you should care. Are you partnering with Paxos? There was this, I had this idea in my head at some point, stablecoin, et cetera, Paxos. But I haven't even seen, the Binance stablecoin that they did, which kind of made me frown on them a little bit, to be fair. I can't believe they would go into business as such a regulated kind of institution with one of the best set up stablecoins that exists in terms of how they set it up, would actually do it for Bitcoin. It means they sold out because they obviously have the same idea about Bitcoin, about Binance that everybody else in the industry that knows what they're talking about has about Binance. Maybe they don't say it out loud, but they all think the same thing. So that kind of that made me frown on them a bit. But at this point, I don't really see something in the cards, but I wouldn't rule it out. There we go. Yeah, earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation. Thank you very much. I knew somebody would remember that. So yeah. Any thoughts on this? Don't know what that was about, Brian, so I'm going to continue. Why are you doing a bond rather than a standard equity fundraise? Hey, Grumbling Unicorn, again. I think I might answer that question already, but I'll answer it again for you. If we raise, when you're a small investor, so let's say you have 100 euros to put in, and you're like, yeah, we'll let you buy. First of all, buying into equity with 100 euros means you're going to get 0.0, some very small percentage, which isn't too exciting really for the investor. But also, we don't necessarily plan to pay some massive dividend, regardless of how the company does. Most will be reinvested in the next 2 years, which means we're asking small investors that may not have substantial capital to give up some of that capital for potentially no real income for 2 years or perhaps a bit more. And I don't think most small investors would agree that would be, they probably wouldn't see that as fair or too sexy or too interesting. But if we say, look, we're going to take this as a loan at first, and we're going to give you 2 years to be able to sell out of that loan, and we're going to give you a good interest rate in those 2 years. You get almost immediate income on your investment, cash flow right away. And at some point, if you want to get out, you can get out. And at the end of 2 years, you can watch us grow. And what we're telling you is we're giving you a test drive before you commit. It's like when you go, if I go to buy a product now online, a service product, and they don't give me 30 days risk-free trial at least, I don't buy it. I don't care what it is. I don't care how much I want it. I don't get it. You know why? Because that means they don't have trust in their own product. They're telling me that their product is shit. And they know that if I go to test it, I might not want it anymore. So they don't let me test it. Here, we're letting you test and watch and participate in CoinMetro for 2 years to see what happens. Because we are confident that everything is going to go in the green and that CoinMetro is going to expand and grow. And we're so confident that we're willing to pay you up to 12% interest to sit and watch in those 2 years to see what happens. And I think that's a perfect reason why not to go straight into equity, even for larger investors, to be fair. Even as larger investors, we're giving you literally a chance to see what's happening, not just for free, but we're paying you to do it. Kevin, I heard that in some TG groups, they are trying to make something like anti-centralized exchange move. Yeah, I'm sure they are. Look, I think like most things in life, I should make like a Kevin's Greatest Hits, where I go back on every single AMA and Telegram voice message, and every single time I was right, I just add it in, and then we'll just play it back. But I don't know how many of the messages, I definitely have messages where I was wrong. But I think that column's a little smaller than it is on the other side. At least when talking about what's going to happen in the market and how the market's going to mature over time. Even back in 2017, the kind of first videotape that came out of me on a stage talking about crypto, I talked about FX licensing and FX regulation, how the same process was going to happen. And literally verbatim, that's what's happened. And that's not because I'm a genius or because I'm so awesome or because my bald head can somehow communicate with aliens and they're giving me the answers. No, though that would be quite awesome. It's just simply because, well, it's experience. Experience trumps, sometimes education, to be fair. So lots of experience. You've just seen it happen a million times. It's probably going to happen 1,000,001. So I think a lot of people don't understand that there are lots of trade-offs for decentralized exchanges. Decentralized exchanges tried to become the norm in 2017. They failed because of technology. They've bettered the technology, so they've come back with a bang. But tell me why decentralized exchanges have taken off. And I'll tell you that the vast majority of volumes tied to decentralized exchanges are frauds, outright rug pull frauds. That is the vast majority of volume that's flowing in and out. Now, that doesn't mean over time they're going to garner more volume, because they will. But they also are in this belief that they're going to go outside of regulatory control, that somehow they're going to be able to operate anywhere in the world, no owner, anonymous coders that made the protocol, and, come at me, bro. It's like an Arthur Hayes move, come at me, bro. I'm an anonymous coder that made it Uniswap. You can't touch me. Well, I can guarantee you the US long arm of the law, especially when it comes to AML and money laundering, can get you, and they will. And I can almost guarantee you the next wave, after we go through all the big centralized exchanges in terms of, we got BitMEX on the block. I would expect Binance, OKX, those go, Huobi even maybe perhaps, it's coming. And after they go through the centralized exchanges that don't abide by the law and break it, they will go after decentralized exchanges for not hampering money laundering, because they can. They could do KYC. They could do AML tracking over that smart contract. They could, and they don't. And they can't say that it's just a platform. They can't say they're not an intermediary because they created the contract or they created the system that allows the contract to be created Either or, they probably will be held liable. So I think that the future is going to be a hybrid. It's going to be centralized order books, decentralized settlement. And just like we saw with the ICO bubble, when all these ICO platforms, and I remember saying, these guys are going to get shut down. This is going to end. And they were, no. Or, I remember people coming to us. I have, Chinese investors that want to invest 5 million. Well, I need their documents. Oh, they don't want to give their documents. Everybody else took their money. These things will end. They will come to an end. And their anti-centralized exchange, their biggest point for that is not your keys, not your Bitcoin, which is asinine. And it's asinine for a few reasons. I'll give you the main one. This is an easy one that somehow goes over everybody's head. I agree with you that if you're on a centralized exchange that's not regulated and doesn't care about you and is anonymous, if your money goes missing because of a hack or otherwise, they're never giving you that money back. That's a guarantee, almost. Probably 99% guarantee. If you're on a centralized exchange that is regulated, is run in an honest and transparent manner, and something happens, you're going to be covered one way or another. Why? Because even if it's not an obligation under the law, that exchange at some point is going to have to be able to show that the assets under management or the assets that are on deposit are on deposit. That's it, simple as that. And they want to maintain their business. And that won't happen with decentralized exchanges. When mom and pop try a decentralized exchange for the first time and get phished, no one's going to give them their money back. There is no protection at all. As centralized exchanges become more and more regulated, there will be things like insurance, just like there are at banks. There will be insurance on every single transaction. There will be insurance on all connected wallets. It will happen. It might have not happened yet, but it will. And those advantages won't come to decentralized exchanges because those will be personal wallets controlled by individuals, like cash in your wallet. Now, in 20 years, we may have something like on an app that may provide, if you go to the ATM right now, you may be able to get an insurance that if you're robbed within 2 hours of going to the ATM, they cover you up to $500. That might be something that happens in the future, but that's a long ways off. Whereas centralized exchange being insured is only a few years off. Anyway, my point is that people that don't understand the entirety of the situation, the problem, et cetera, have a hard time understanding what the real implications are. And here, most of the time in life, people can say whatever they want. No one checks them, right? They'll say it as if it's a fact. And these are people talking as if they're facts without really understanding the whole, four-dimensional chess game that's going on. And that's it. Not your keys, not your Bitcoin is a dumb phrase. It's stupid. It literally doesn't make sense for 99% of the possible population that would deal in Bitcoin or any other asset, because they won't be dealing with private and keys and hardware wallets because the learning curve is impossible. And that learning curve is going to be hard to lower because that's simply how the protocols work. The only way that can be lowered is by a software layer, which implies centralization. They are blaming sexist for evil in crypto. Yeah, anyway, I think I covered that one. I feel like crypto could be the tasty work. I feel like CoinMetro could be the tasty works of crypto. Hey, Kunal, I don't know what Tasty Works is. Maybe everybody else does, but if somebody lets me know, then I can actually comment on the comment. Why is everyone talking about a hack regarding CoinMetro? Because there was an incident at CoinMetro 2 weeks ago. I don't call it a hack because, to me, it doesn't follow the definition of a hack. It follows the definition of an intrusion. It was an intrusion on a workstation in CoinMetro's offices. You can actually read about it in our Telegram updates channel. I would say read that. If you have questions about it afterward, there's an update October 6th, I believe, or 7th. 6th, I think. Read it in our Telegram's updates channel. If you have a question, tag me at Kevin Mirko and I'll answer it. So you think, you had another question there. Sorry, let me go back to Sapino. Price dropped because we're an altcoin, we're a utility token, and people are FOMOing into Bitcoin and Ether, to be fair. Happens every time. It happens because what happens though, what the cool thing about this is it's kind of a boomerang effect, and on the way back, it's always stronger than on the way out. So money flows out of alts, let's call them micro caps, small to micro caps, very small, illiquid, generally altcoins. Small amounts of money in general flow out of those tokens into Bitcoin, which has much more liquidity, has a very small effect on Bitcoin price. Bitcoin then gets to a point where it stabilizes and it stagnates. money and then those FOMOers get upset because there's no more action. They cash out their profits from Bitcoin, funnel them back into those altcoins. And because the altcoins have significantly less liquidity overall in market cap, it actually pushes the price higher than it was previous to the withdrawals. So we're kind of probably somewhere between the middle, like maybe the middle to 2/3 of the way around that cycle right now, I think. So you think the bond has a big ROI potential. Should we sell our XCM to buy into the bond? Do you think this bond is bad short-term for the people who listen to your buy XCM every Friday? The bond has potential. It has big potential ROI. That's sure. So does XCM though. Obviously, we've priced XCM at 20 cents per XCM for that bond redemption, and we've done that because we think that's conservative in 2 years. Actually, quite conservative, to be fair. So we're trying to give a perk, but we also want to be able to value the XCM we're going to give away, not at current price, because current price is very undervalued. If you already own XCM and you've been buying it, you're already, I think, in a decent position. So there's, I think, no need. There's no real reason to convert. If you think about the interest, it's an addition to a portfolio. It's like saying I'm already in Tesla, stock. Should I get into this Google thing? Or I'm already in Google. Should I get into this Tesla thing as well? There's no guarantee it's going to be better or worse. Maybe it's significantly better, maybe significantly worse, maybe just a little bit better. But it's called diversification for a reason. It's to diversify, right? So I think for people that are already in XCM, it can be a good diversification agent. I wouldn't suggest selling XCM to get into the CoinMetro bond, because all you're doing is putting sell pressure on XCM, which doesn't benefit you either in the bond, to be fair. So I think I've already explained this a bit at the beginning, but I would say that they're two very different animals. One is about a fixed income product that you then have the option to convert into equity. You can also buy them on the secondary market, by the way. So if you're already deep into XCM, rather than selling that XCM now to get in the primary, I would probably wait to get into the secondary and see how the secondary goes to see potentially if it moves higher or lower, and then gauge my interest from there. Though I do think it's going to be pretty stable as far as the bond price goes. So I would say if you're an XCM holder, it wouldn't make much sense. It's more about a diversification, and it's more about people that are probably more intrinsically pulled towards the equity stake rather than the solely into the speculation on XCM. USD is already delayed, right? When is it live, man? I want XCM to moon. I think I talked about USD already. Maybe you weren't here at that time, but yeah, USD. Well, look, and this is gonna be a long answer, dude. So I'm gonna apologize right from the get-go. But here we go, because I want to make sure that anybody that wasn't here when I said it the first time gets it this time. I've been involved in finance and fintech for 22 years. 11 of those years, I was operating a Forex brokerage, which is very similar to operating a crypto company, to be fair, in many aspects. I've gone through onboarding processes and opened probably over 100 different accounts, both personal and business, over those 22 years. It's been bank accounts, electronic money accounts, intermediate accounts, liquidity providers, all kinds of different financial accounts. One, KYC processes to open accounts absolutely suck, and they take forever. That's one. Especially when you're an entity, man, when you're opening a company account, it's no ball game, that's for sure. Two, salespeople always overpromise and tech underdelivers. That's how most of these situations end up working. You're promised a certain capability for your business, and then tech goes, nah, we can't do that. Or nah, that's not how that works. Or that's not deployed yet. And you sign an agreement that guarantees you certain services that you don't get. And that may sound crazy. And I'm not talking about small little banks based in, Mogadishu or something, or way out in some South Pacific island. I'm talking about major financial institutions, tier one banks, major money processing businesses, same thing. So what I do at CoinMetro is this, what I like to do. And I think I would love for every company that I'm involved in to do the same thing. And maybe I'm wrong. But I like to be transparent to the point where you guys, our community, as part of the team, which means when I have information, I share it. Let's say, I'm going to give you an example. Let's say today I didn't have this phone call, but this is an example. Let's say I had a phone call today, and USD provider told me we should be ready by Wednesday next week. Let's just say that was what they told me. I come on the AMA, somebody asks, I go, well, looks like it's going to be Wednesday next week because our USD provider, that's what they just told us based on this, and that. Then come Wednesday morning, USD provider not responsive tells me, there was an issue. Actually, we have to wait another 6 business days because of X, Y, or Z. So I come back the next Friday, tail between my legs a bit, and I say, well, yeah, USD provider came back on Wednesday, and guess what, guys? It's another 4 business days now because of this, and that. And, then in Telegram, you get, soon, next week, whatever, and people get upset thinking that we're setting hard external dates and not meeting them. But if you pay attention to outside of the community, outside of Telegram, outside of our centralized community, where do you see us posting dates? I'll wait on that one. I'll sit back for a second. Yeah, and when we do post dates, are they met? I'll give you a hint. They are, almost entirely. But to our community, we treat you guys different because we think you are different. You've either been here since the beginning, you've been supporting us, you're in the Telegram group, you're reposting tweets, you're doing all these things, you really become part of the fabric of the company, so we treat you as such. But that means that the same frustrations I feel every day when I sit at my desk here and I have to talk to providers and I have to talk to banks, and you guys get a little bit of that same frustration. I think that's commendable. I may be wrong. And I have no problem in changing that. If our community feels that they'd rather be kept in the dark and only given dates when we're absolutely 100% positive that it's going to go live. That's fine with me. We can do that. I don't think there's lots of benefit in that, to be fair. But that's me. So as far as USD goes, right now, we were told something last week that we weren't told previous, wasn't in the agreement, to be fair, that our soft launch had to last 10 business days, and we had to have 10 people at a minimum do deposit or withdrawals for the system. The 10 business days ends today. We've only had 7 people go through the process of deposits and withdrawals out of the 12 people we whitelisted, simply because the other ones haven't been approved entirely by the service provider using their own compliance system. We've been pestering them to do so. Up to this point, they haven't told us that it's done. Thus, those 10 people haven't passed the soft launch. According to the rules that they gave us, that weren't in the agreement, that they gave to us out of the blue, we haven't passed the soft launch yet, which means we need 3 more people to go in and actually make a deposit or withdrawal. We're working on that. I'm hoping it can happen today, as long as they respond to us and they get it done. Technically, we're ready to roll. Absolutely. So if it happens today, if it happens Monday, if it happens Tuesday, that launch will be imminent. Before the bond, I absolutely want to get it. And if I have to fly to the US, quarantine for 14 days, and walk into these guys' office with 16 masks on, PPE, 16 pairs of gloves, 4 hats, and a monocle in my left eye, I will do that. So here we go. USD is on Monday. I hope there will not be delays. I think I just covered that one. Thank you, Brian. Appreciate that. You can convince an Eskimo to buy ice. We are in. I look forward to the 30th. Appreciate that, Jason. It's not me, man. It's the entire team that created a product that it's hard to say no to. But yeah, I guess I do have the gift of gab. That's why I'm CEO and not CFO. Or I don't know what else, or COO, I guess, either. What level of daily volume do you think will put a rocket up XCM's price? I think daily volume is one piece of the puzzle. So volume does induce more vaulting. Vaulting induces obviously a lower circulating supply. Though you have to understand what that means to FOMO, because you understand what that means. That in and of itself isn't necessarily going to be a rocket ship. So there's a combination. It's a combination of marketing awareness, a combination of volume, and it's a combination of simple, like I said, awareness. People understanding why they should be in XCM. So that rewards section, staking, the ability to stake and do collateral at the same time, all those things, I think, that one thing, staking and collateral, I think could be quite huge. Because where else can you go and get staking rewards, but still be able to use the collateral to trade with? I don't know. I would say nowhere. So I think that's so I think it's more than just volume. But I think internally and externally, we would become much more hyped and FOMO'd once we're a profitable business, which means we need roughly between about 5 million a day to make sure, 5 to 7 million a day, I would guess, depending on whether there are limits and market orders and all those good things, on the exchange to be, let's say, basically profitable, maybe by a very small amount, but profitable, sustainable and profitable. that is going to change a little bit of the way the company operates, simply because the stress comes off the company for fundraising and things like that, at least in the short term. And you'd be surprised at how much that can change the way the company functions and what the company does, the morale and all those things. Not that we have bad morale, we don't. But those type of that thing can always that type of situation can always cause like a hidden cloud. It doesn't for me, to be fair. I've had so much experience with fundraising and startups and successes and failures on both sides that I'm kind of immune now to the stress. I mean, obviously at some point I wasn't, but I think at this point it doesn't stress me at all. I just get it done. That's my slogan. Just get it done. Great AMA. Thank you, Sapino. Appreciate you for coming. Great questions. So guys, if you haven't already, please subscribe, click a button. We've been in for an hour and 20 minutes. I'll give it a few minutes, see if more questions roll in. I think I got to all of them that are currently there. If I missed your question, post it again and I will answer it. If you're watching this after it's live and you're catching it as on a rerun, you can always tag me at Kevin Mirko on Telegram or tweet me at Kevin Mirko on Twitter. You can get me on Facebook, but to be honest, on my personal Facebook, not there that much, not a fan. But definitely on Twitter and on Telegram, you can reach me and I'll answer any questions that roll in. Once USD comes in, here's another question coming in from Trikonos. Once USD comes in, you will see a spike in price for XCM. But in your opinion, will it be temporary or a permanent one? Well, initial spikes, I would say, are always temporary. But it depends on the amount, the amount of the spike and whether the people that are coming in that create that spike are there for day trading an asset to get a potential quick gain, or they're getting into that asset for staking, for collateral, for rewards, etc. In that case, there's always going to be a percentage. You have a spike like this, there's always going to be a percentage that take profit. And that's smart to do, to be fair, for a trader, right? There's always going to be a percentage that take profit, but there's always going to be a percentage that hold. And that's why we make sure that over time, and we will continue to do this, that there's benefits for holding. There has to be a built-in mechanism for people. Why should they hold the asset, right? Obviously, for speculative purposes, one, but what other utility can this possibly provide me? And I think as we add more and more utility, those spikes become more and more permanent. So I do think USD will cause, obviously, some eyeballs on XCM and CoinMetro in general. It will probably cause a bit of push to the upside. There probably will be some profit taking, but I do think we've been establishing kind of over long time periods higher lows. When we see spikes down and also when we see spikes up and then we see retraces, we've been getting higher lows. So I expect that trend to continue. You're welcome, Grasshopper. Appreciate, again, the comments and questions. Yeah, guys, 1 hour, 22 minutes in. If you haven't, please subscribe. If you haven't subscribed, wherever you're watching, please subscribe. It's going to help us and it's going to help you in the end if you're part of the community. Make sure you give us the thumbs up. Make sure you click on those hearts. It is Friday. I do have to say, when you're hanging out over the weekend, try to spend time with friends and family, de-stress a bit, get out of this whole Corona, elections, the world is coming to an end theme. I don't know, binge watch some Netflix, eat some popcorn, and obviously, while you're watching, make sure you have your laptop on your lap, plugged in so that it doesn't go off, and sit and day trade and buy some XCM because, why not? It's a great pastime, and even your kids should be doing it. So yeah, if we don't see something come in the next minute or so here, I will call it a day. Remember, crowdfunding going live next week, guys. It's the CoinMetro bond. It's a unique product. I haven't seen one like it in the market. It's going to go live to early access members on the 30th of October. If you haven't gone to bond.coinmetro.com and gotten your early access, you better hurry up. We have lots of interest that's coming in. We want to make sure everybody gets a piece. Unfortunately, there are a limited amount of pieces that are available. So have a look at bond.coinmetro. Tag us on Telegram. Tweet at us. Do what you need to get in touch with us if you have any questions. 24/7 live support right from our own website. Great support staff that can answer your questions as well. And the last question that just rolled in, do you accept traders from the US? Yes, we do. We accept traders from the US. 3 states, unfortunately, we can't onboard for. That's New York State, Washington State, and Hawaii. So if you're living in Hawaii, you got to just sit on the beach, man. Sorry, can't be a trader on CoinMetro. If you're in New York, you're probably stuck in your house because of Corona. So that's kind of shitty. But unfortunately, we can't onboard you either. And if you're in Washington State, I don't know, man. Seattle, it rains too much, I guess. So it's not. It's a sad town because of all the rain. It's always kind of dreary and gray. Unfortunately, we can't onboard you there either. But everywhere else in the U.S., you are welcome as a trader, 100%. So appreciate the time, guys. Appreciate everything. Again, bond.coinmetro.com, early access, 30th of October. Don't miss it because, well, if you don't get in early, you may not be able to get in. And anyway, thanks a lot for the support. Check out the bond page. Get us on Telegram at CoinMetro. Get me on Telegram at Kevin Mirko. Get me on Twitter at Kevin Mirko. Get us on Twitter at CoinMetro. Ask our questions. Check our tweets. You're going to see a lot more cool stuff coming out for CoinMetro in the short, medium, and long term. And I will see you guys here next week. And I'll see you on Telegram, well, every day along with the rest of our staff. See you guys. Thanks a lot. Cheers.